When Joe was 7, he started playing t-ball for Sandringham. And by the time he was 11, he was representing Australia internationally. With our travels, with his baseball trainings, we ate out a lot, more than you should. And we kind of got a ritual where if we stopped off for dinner and you place your order and you're waiting for the meal to arrive, we played little games. And this one game was, it was like spin the bottle, only spin the knife on the table. And if the knife pointed at you, you had to answer any question that was asked. You had to answer it honestly. That was the rule. So we had fun with that. And because he was 15, at 15 you more and more don't know what's going on in your child's life, so I loved the game. And he had actually broken up with the girl that he'd been going out with when he was 14. And she had just reappeared on the scene. And I loved this girl. So knife pointed at Joe and I said, are you guys getting back together again? And he looked at me and it's hard to explain how I knew, but he just looked at me and he said, Mom, that's never going to happen again. And that's all he said. And I just looked at him and he said, ask me. And I couldn't. And it was a moment where time stopped. It was like I had reincarnated into my father. Like, I was cool with all of my gay and lesbian friends, but this was different. I would ask him, I don't know how many times I'd ask him, why would you choose this? This is going to be a harder life. You're a good-looking, smart guy. Why would you choose this life? And he'd say, it's not a choice, Mom. And it took me a long time to actually really, really grasp that it's not. I couldn't trust anybody because I knew that his dream would be at risk if anybody found out, because he really was on track to play. He had a choice. He had scouts looking at him. He could have played professional baseball. He could have gone and gotten a scholarship to university. But all of that was at risk if anybody found out. And I couldn't trust my best friends. And that started to really isolate me and put me in a place I'd never been. The thing that haunted me and just wouldn't leave me alone was, why didn't I see this coming? And then very quickly followed what was this feeling of a good mother would have. A good mother would have seen that. Like, I was just sad all the time, like all the time. I couldn't get through the day without crying several times. I couldn't support him if I wasn't okay. So I had to go on that little search and journey to find some answers. The answer was from the guy in the bookstore. You know, as you know how you just read the titles of the books and, you know, nothing really was jumping out. And then I did find one that was something about parents. And so I pulled it off the shelf and I started reading just the front page of it. And I just broke down. Like, tears were like it was sobbing. It was just crying, like really loud. And out of the blue, and I don't know where he came from, hand on my shoulder. And it's a young guy that works at the bookstore, and he just, I turned around, I'm so embarrassed, you know, I got makeup on. And he said, son or daughter? And that just, you know, I said, son. And he said, you don't know what you're going through, do you? And I said, no. And he says, love, you're just in mourning. And I really, at that moment, understood I was mourning the loss of my son that I thought I had. And the confusion and the sadness was that I had no right to be in mourning because he was alive. He's healthy. He's fine. I love him, and he's here. So how could I possibly be mourning? It helped me immensely to know that all I was dealing with was the loss of the child I thought I had. That guy was gone. And, you know, now it's funny because it is like, I mean, Joe and I, you know, I can't even imagine that guy anymore, really. And I loved that guy, but I love this guy. But it was getting to know him all over again in a whole different realm. What I'm really proud about is that he knows no matter what, he's supported unconditionally. He's unconditionally loved exactly how he is. And if I can give any advice, you have to get into the other person's shoes. You've got to get into their world. You've got to see it through their eyes. It's a personal journey that you have to really realize it's a twofold thing. You're doing it for your child, but you're also doing it for yourself, because if you're a parent, you didn't have a child to not have a wonderful, intimate, close, loving relationship. You didn't have a child for anything short of that.